all of you to Leaders Connect. There's a few new people that have been part of the group for a long time. And first of all, I really want to thank you for coming out in the snow because, it's not easy. The roads are rough and it's cold out there. So I really appreciate all of you being here. And as we talked about the Irish here, Eileen up at top there is going to supply breakfast stout for all of us this morning. So we start the weekend drinking. You just have to go to Cleveland to get it. That's the only problem. So I'm going to turn things over. We're in the midst of doing goal setting in the first couple of months of this year. Last week, we talked about how to set a goal and talking about, I put a goal grid out there, which I think everybody has seen. And we're going to go through the next few weeks on different ways different areas that I want to talk about setting goals. So today is going to be health regarding your physical health. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do one on your mental and spiritual health. So what goals do you have there in terms of getting your head together and trying to get on a path of good mental health? So today is, and then we're going to follow that up with a work goal. So we're going to do work goals, health goals, and then we're going to also do the goals today of physical and mental health. So let me turn things over to my buddy, Steve Angerman. Steve, if you could take the screen. Steve has been involved in the running scene in Ann Arbor for 39 years. I first met Steve when he had a little running shop above Bivouac in Ann Arbor. And I bought many pairs of shoes and many hiking and running gear from him. So Steve, what are you wearing today?
Well, right now I have the same type of footwear that Fred Flintstone wears.
Okay.
It's popular in Bedrock. So, but later I will choose from my array of footwear when I go out to shovel. And I will say there'll be a Gore-Tex pair, so my feet will stay dry and warm.
And Steve, I also want to say go Chiefs.
Thank you very much.
Lives and dies for the Kansas City Chiefs. The only problem is I want Tampa Bay to win because of our boy Tom Brady there, Michigan guy, so.
I know that's been, all my friends are all rooting for Tom and the Bucs. So it's been a tough one this year, but the Chiefs are the defending champs. I'm actually wearing one of my Chiefs hats today. This hat is probably 25, 26 years old. So, trying to get all the karma going.
It's finally okay to wear a red hat now that
right.
gone from the White House, right?
So thanks for inviting me on this, Rob. Like you mentioned, we've known each other. I've been in Ann Arbor for 39 years, and I've known Rob for a majority of those years. And we've shared a lot of conversations, both in the store and in some of the groups that I worked with Rob over the years. And goal setting is one of the things that's been a huge part of my life for many, many years. And I always like Rob's when he gets out his little file box and shares his history of writing goals and pulls some out. And I have a similar little notebook that really probably isn't that much younger than Rob's file box, because my little notebook I got started in the early 70s. That I was a high school kid. So as I used goals in my business, and some of I was the co-owner of Running Fit. We had 10 stores in Michigan for 30 some years, and my business partner, Randy Stepp. We also started an event company that is still I'm active in when we can have events, when we can put events on. And but at any rate, that was definitely a part of our business success, was this idea of setting goals, especially in businesses that involve sales and numbers, big part of it. But my real start in developing this habit started, like I say, back when I was a squirrely high school kid, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do and create my identity. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to become an athlete. The trouble was I had no talent. I was small and scrawny, and I wasn't good at anything. So to make a long story short, I found myself on the cross country team in high school. And when I first went to the coach and asked, what I got to do to to make the team. Show up. That was it. You know, if you show up and come to practice, you're on the team. I never had to cut anybody. He said they cut themselves if they can't handle it. So so right there was, wow, achieved my first goal in 1972 and was on a team and part of something. And I soon learned from our coach the idea of keeping track of our miles that we ran, especially the things that we did when we weren't at practice. So cross country, fall sports. So during the summer, we were, you know, to keep track of the runs we did when we weren't meeting as a group. So I got into this. I had a little notebook and I started keeping track of that. And then as we got into the season, I had that goal. Now I was on the team and I felt like, all right, I'm a somebody. And then it was, well, what do I have to be to get off the JV to, you know, to be on the varsity team? And what do you have to do to letter and blah, blah, blah. So I started creating these little goals and I would write them down. I had my little notebook that I called my Fairview cross country notebook. And that's where I would write down what we did in practice and what, like I said, miles that we ran, my performances. And I kept track of those all through the season and then on through my whole career. And from that, I really did develop a passion for the sport and for running. And I don't think I realized it as a young adolescent, but looking back as an adult, I was developing who I was, what was important to me, how it made me feel, and create an identity. And from there, I went on to Eastern Kentucky University, where I ran cross country and track there. And of course there at that level, we had goal sheets that we sent into our coach. And there's where I first started learning about the acronym of SMART goals. And also some of that came from classroom classes I took at school. But as I started to process that, I looked back and I thought, wow, you know, that's what I was doing as a dumb little high school kid was they were SMART goals. You know, I had specific things that I wanted to do. And obviously in sport of cross country and track and field, which is there's a clock measuring you and meets are scheduled and such, seasons have endings. They were definitely measurable. They were attainable. They were things that I wanted to do. And I think that's where I learned sort of the idea of multiple goals and sort of stepping, having smaller goals and then working up. And then they were realistic and relevant to what I was doing. And like I mentioned, there was a time element to them because of the nature of the sport and seasons. So I think everybody on this call has ever read any business book or anything knows those characteristics of a SMART goal. But as I got into my life as an entrepreneur and trying to accomplish things for our company, both in sales and in business and for our staff and to develop the culture of the store, I relied heavily on setting these goals and I realized the importance of it. And then one of the things that I've been doing for many years, even before running fit, when I worked at a small running shop back in Dayton, Ohio, was leading and coaching marathon training groups, helping people that wanted to run a marathon. And the whole structure of that was first by creating these goals. But then I got away more from the business and I started adding some characteristics and tips that I felt were very specific for fitness goals. And that's what I wanted. Those were some of the bullet points that we shared, and I wanted to dig in those a little bit deeper. And I think one of the key ones, and like I said, mine started with a book, is having some place where you write your goal down and where you can see it. And that sort of goes right hand in hand for fitness goals of having that some sort of log, some sort of record of what you've done. So there's a great place to put what you want to accomplish, what your goal is, and then also to track what you're doing. And I think that some people that freaks them out a little bit, but it can be as easy or as little or as detailed as you want it to be, but it's nice to have that to reflect on. And you can also then put your goals, when you think of the time, into small blocks, into small units. I like for fitness to have 3-week blocks of time. Here's what I want to accomplish in this 3 weeks, and not worry about the 3 weeks after or the 3 weeks after that. Just concentrate on these 3 weeks. And that way you can have multiple little objectives that you're trying to reach within that. And you know what, if you get sick and you miss a whole week, or the stuff that happens in life, it's okay. It was just a little 3-week block, you move on. So I think those are two of the real important features, is recording it and reviewing it. It will also be kind of your motivation, because as you're recording and you aren't gonna, you're gonna have what we call in running DNR, did not run. So if you were trying to run, had something on Wednesday, and then you have to put that in there, it's a little extra motivation. And it also becomes motivation as you have pages, as you start to accomplish many things and they're written down, you can review these, and it is a reward in itself, and it reinforces what you're doing and that goal of what you're trying to achieve. So I think that's really important. The other thing I mentioned was scheduling, and that is the idea of time management, but it's really looking at what you're going to do, what your fitness goals are, and looking at your schedule over a week or over 3 weeks, and when am I going to do it? When is this going to fit in my life? And planning it and making that appointment and keeping it just like you would anything else, just like you made an appointment to come to Leaders Connect today. So if we were at the Roadhouse, you know, you would have had that to get up and shovel or clean your car off and such. So this, Rob made it easy for you, but you would have kept that appointment, and that's learning that habit, I think, is good. I mentioned frequency versus duration. This is especially important as we're first getting started with either this whole process of fitness goals or starting again with new ones. The idea that it's more important to start to develop the habit that I just need to get out and do whatever it is, whatever my physical activity is, X amount of times a week or X amount of times in this 3-week block, versus how long I'm doing it. You know, that will come later as when you get down to your 4th or 5th block of time. But at the beginning, just work on getting it done, being able to check it out. I always told people that were running, you know what, going out and running 10 minutes is better than no minutes. So if you have to cut back because of schedule or whatever, that's a good thing. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of throw out, and then I'll hand it over, because I had my own goal today to not talk for the whole 60 minutes. And that is the idea of visualizing. So as you're thinking about your goals and you're writing them, you're creating them, it's great to kind of visualize, well, what does that look like in my life? What will it look like for me to be someone who walks, gets up and walks 5 times a week before work? How will that make me feel? So you want to kind of look at what the end of the goal is, and then during the process, how is that going to work in my life? Is it going to be, oh, I could see myself where instead of eating lunch at work, I could go out and walk for 30 minutes at lunch. What does that look like? So I think you want to kind of visualize that. And I think any of us on here that have been athletes, like Britany is an Iron Lady, and you know, I'm sure that in her training she visualized what it's like to get in there and swim in the ocean, and to get out, and more importantly to finish that race and to cross the finish line. And obviously we were talking about the Super Bowl, you know, Tom Brady, I'm sure, you know, imagine what it was like and visualized in his practice and his days being a Super Bowl champion. So that's like I say, that's in a nutshell some of the attributes, and I think the habits and best practices that you can incorporate with your SMART goals. And I'll pass those on to you. And I think we're going to hand it off to Britany, and she's going to talk get a little bit deeper into the why, the importance of whys and goals when you're setting up these goals, the whys and the hows, and some of that. So Britany, take it away, Iron Lady.
Thanks, Steve. It's so good to see everyone here, folks I know and new folks. So welcome, good morning. Steve, thanks for all of that. I think as we've talked about, it's just, I view my role in this is to emphasize some of the pieces, the wise advice you have laid out for us. And when I was looking at these initially, I was reflecting a bit on my own experience. And for those, I mean, most of you probably are not aware, but I, like Steve, was a high school and collegiate athlete. I was a high jumper. But unlike being a runner, when you graduate college, there's no outlet for you to be competitive in that way. And in my case, high jump seems to be the only thing I was really good at. Running, I'm very mediocre. So I had a bit of an identity crisis probably. But one of the things that was always good for me as an athlete, a competitive athlete, was having a goal and being physically active, which I have a hard time separating the physical health from the mental health. They go together for me. And so I'm more balanced when I'm like a border collie. You got to exercise me for me to be balanced and not tear up the cushions. So, you know, moving beyond being an athlete in that way, I had to discover ways that were self-satisfying. And this is where I probably tripped up a bit and gets into the why. So setting, you know, a realistic and attainable goal is great if you have a good sense of what that is, but more importantly, it is, why are you doing it? And so I would say probably some of the initial goals I set were things that were rooted in my vision and identity of myself before as a competitive athlete. And they didn't make a lot of sense for who I was becoming and who I, you know, would become. And so through trial and error and being part of a community, I was able to adjust and get more into, why do I want to run a 5K in a certain time? Why do I want to lose weight? Why do I want, you know, like those things can't be the goal in and of themselves. They have to be part of something bigger. And, you know, over time and through some maturity, I was able to realize what's important to me is to stay active and to take on new challenges, to find some joy in whatever it is I was doing. So, you know, I spread it around, you know, in addition to running, I learned how to swim about 5 weeks before I did my first triathlon. I was not a swimmer. So, you know, I asked a lot of friends for help. I happened to have a brother-in-law who was a swim coach and swam competitively. So, you know, I bugged everybody to teach me. And I also took a class. And so once I learned how to swim, it was like a new superpower. And that is what is often a motivator for me. I picked up soccer. I had never played soccer before, and I played a few years and met some new people that way. I continued to play tennis, and I also learned how to, but I learned how to at least not embarrass myself on a golf course. And so, you know, for me, it has been the goal, the why has been to feed that competitive piece just through learning new things and achieving new things that are on my level, and also being part of a community. And so when I turned 40, I mean, I knew I loved triathlon. It fit me well because as an aging middle-aged athlete, I'm becoming old and broken. And so pounding away, just running wasn't all that great for my body. And so doing the running combined with the biking and the swimming was very helpful. And so I'm like, how can I do something that's really bold and would make me feel proud of myself, right? And would keep me scheduled and busy with workouts through a year. And so for my 40th birthday, my gift to myself was a half Ironman. And so for those who may not be aware, that's a 1.2 mile swim. It's 56-mile bike, and then a half marathon, which is 13.1, which I'll be honest is the hardest part for me. And I did it. And so every other year that I've been doing another one, I swore it off the last time I did it, saying I'm old enough, I can't do the half marathon anymore, it's just hard. But then this year I Well, I realize I'm a liar, so I signed up again. So we're doing it again, and it's a good way to keep on track. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I like the training better than the actual event sometimes. So, if COVID ends up canceling my event, I don't know that I'll be terribly upset because I will have at least gotten there. And that's me understanding why I do it. I also wanted to emphasize the parts that Steve talked about with writing it down, right? Having a log or having some place. And I combine that a little bit with community and people. So for me, I do really well when I have a training buddy. Keeps me honest. And unfortunately, my training partner right now is facing back surgery for a herniated disc this month. So, but it all looks like it's going to go well, and she'll be back to triathlon in the summer. So, it's been hard, but I still stay accountable with her by sending her text messages. And just this week, I really didn't want to get off the couch and go run. And she gave me a really hard time, and I got out the door. So find your buddy. And sometimes that's in a community. So for me, I used to keep big spreadsheets and things like that of my workouts. I have now shifted to using my more apps. I have a couple apps that sync up with each other. And one of those is Strava. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Strava. Yeah, so it's a nice community. Some people don't like it because, like, my training partner won't use it because she feels too competitive. It doesn't give her any kind of joy. But for me, I get so motivated when I go on there and I see people, oh my gosh, my friend Phil Santer, who I don't know if is on, he just got up at 5:30 this morning and got his 10 miles in. Okay, I can definitely go out for my 4 miles. It's very motivating and it feels good to be part of a larger community. And before COVID, it was nice to be part of some different groups here in Ann Arbor where you could meet up after your workouts and get a beer down at, Grizzly Peak. So, finding your community, I think, is really key to helping you achieving your goals and keeping track of it online if that works for you. Some other things I think are important too. So, a couple years ago, I took a job that really was very consuming, and I found myself what I would say I had executive function fatigue. Like, I had to make so many decisions in a day. Making one more decision about what my training should be that day was just too far. And I think this is true for men and women, but one of the advices for women in leadership roles I got very early on, and maybe many of us have gotten, is outsourcing things. And they were talking about, childcare, housework, things like that, so that you could focus on your job. Wherever you could outsource. Well, for me, when it came time to training, I realized I wasn't getting it done, and I needed to outsource. And so that decision making. And so I hired a coach, and I've been working with him for a few years. I mean, it's clearly not because I'm on the podium winning age group awards. It's because I ceded that control of decision making on what I should be doing because I just didn't have the capacity to do it. And it has been working really well for me. So sometimes you might find you need to do that. And with that, obviously sometimes life gets a little crazy. And so you don't have time to get in that tough workout. For me this week, I was supposed to do a time trial on the bike on Tuesday. My Tuesday blew up and I had to adjust. Talk to my coach, and he would tell you, and I'm emphasizing it, consistency is key. You just make adjustments where you can. I know Steve talked about that too, and it's really important. And sometimes if you miss it, you miss it. Move on to the next day. Let it go. It's better just to keep getting back there. As a type A person, this is really hard for me to let anything go. I know we're all type A here. And so when you miss a day, or maybe sometimes a string of 3 days, it can be really difficult to get back out there because you feel like all is lost. Well, all of us probably have experience doing some project management. And we all know when it comes to project management that sometimes things go sideways. You make adjustments. Why should it be any different with us and our meeting our goals in our training programs? And so when I took that perspective, I I was much more willing to cut myself a break and find the path, because the big goal is more important than whether or not I, didn't have a good week. So, so that's huge. I just got a question. It's Michael Parker. Parker Performance is the coaching that I get. So he's really great. The other thing is, and I think it was in the notes in the newsletter, being kind to yourself. We can be our toughest critics. And it is really important to treat ourselves much like we would our good friend or a training buddy. Not beat ourselves up if things don't go perfectly. Really think about it and just be kind. You miss a day, that's great, that's fine. You can get back on track, and allow yourself to do that. Celebrate when you do make it. You probably have your own ways of celebrating. Me, I just feel really good when it gets posted on Strava, because I'm like, it's in print. I did this today. This is good. That's a reward for me. So with that, I think the only other thing I might add is whether you are doing well or you are struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help from your friends and family to help you get there. It's a long road to achieving your goal, and there'll be lots of bumps in it. There'll be lots of exciting times too. So anyway, that's what I wanted to add. Did I miss anything, Steve, Rob?
I think that's great, Britt.
Okay.
One thing I want to say is you mentioned, when you succeed, have a beer. And we have the largest beer distributor in the county here as part of it. So Kit, how are you there? Can you unmute, Kit?
I am here.
So Kit's got O&W beer. We're looking for some breakfast stout for the morning. Can you supply that for us?
We now sell Guinness in Ann Arbor, so I think that's a go-to.
Well, I am not going to lie. One of my favorite things to do when I have a really hard run or bike is to take a shower with a beer, have a shower beer.
That was our Coors Light campaign just recently. Yeah.
Oh, that's
shower beer.
So, it's also great out here. We have a lot of women leaders, women CEOs, women business owners. So we should get you all together into a group. I think that would be really powerful. We're going to go next, and then we're going to break into small groups after Eileen, where each of you will have a chance to talk to a few other people for 10 minutes or so. Eileen is talking to us from Cleveland today, and she has a really interesting story about how fitness and goals have helped her over the last few years.
Well, thanks, Rob, and my longtime friend, Rob Pasick, and Britany and Steve for asking me to share my story and some of the time for you all. I'm not great at telling a story without having written it down. That's been the tradition in my family. We're Irish storytellers. And so I'm going to look at my story and read it and look at you as much as I can, but know that I just do that because that's my tradition. That's my history. I'm a longtime athlete, a competitive athlete. Grew up in a family of 8, and I was in the middle of the pack, and to survive, you had to be a little competitive. So I did not learn to row until 20 years ago, when we had an empty nest and our children had left for college. So rowing became an antidote to the blues, the empty nest blues. Years passed, and I was figuring out how to row and got a lot of coaching. And it was the fall of 2016. The outdoor rowing season had ended for Western Reserve Rowing Association, where it's in Cleveland, Ohio, and we row on the Cuyahoga River. And I, at that time, was a member of the Masters competitive team. I had worked myself up to my skill level and was at my personal zenith, and very proud of my age and proud of the fact that I could row competitively with people that were 20, 30 years younger than me. That's what rowing is like. If you can do it if you can get the stroke right and you can be a good member of a boat, of a team, then your age is only a complement to the team's success, because age categories, you give them a competitive, you give the team a competitive edge. So I would row in multiple regattas that year, including in Ann Arbor and in Cambridge at the premier regatta, the Head of the Charles. I don't know if anybody's heard about the Head of the Charles, but it is the super regatta, like 10,000 participants. It's colleges, it's high schools, it's adult rowers. So out of nowhere that year, metastatic melanoma appeared, first noticed on my pinky toe. A few months later, I went through an amputation, another surgery, and I started on experimental immunotherapy. And that immunotherapy was supposed to go on for 2 years, every 2 weeks. It greatly interrupted my rowing season, but I was able to, in the May of that year, after the amputations and surgery, I got into a boat. I would wrap my swollen leg and get into a doubles boat, and my buddy, my rowing buddy, who continues to be my best rowing buddy, would row while I sat there and just made my first goal of getting in the boat, getting in a boat again. So, and my recovery seemed to be going pretty well. The immunotherapy was working, and then abruptly in 2018, my response to immunotherapy fell apart. The cancer drug began to attack my healthy organs, and I was hospitalized 5 times in 8 months with one problem after another: meningitis, kidney failure, and the worst was prednisone-induced psychosis. The rowing community sent cards and meals and prayers, and visitors stayed with me during my sickest days. So did Rob and Pat and his wife, by the way. And so besides forgetting how to dress and feed myself and drive a car, I lost the ability to walk completely. No muscles, no strength. And I had to go through a rehab that was in-house in a transition care center for 5 weeks to learn how to walk again. At times I thought I was dying, but everyone reassured me I was not, and that the effects of the immunotherapy were responsible and that I could get better. The immunotherapy had actually worked to get rid of my melanoma for the time being. Now we had to overcome the side effects. So in rehab, I was asked to make some SMART goals and to keep them in view. So I posted them on my bulletin board next to my bed, along with a photo of me rowing with my team in a glorious regatta. And after I got out of rehab, 6 months later, I was starting to feel like myself again. So I came back to join the Masters team, albeit no longer at my zenith. My weight had dropped 20 pounds and there was little muscle, but I made a schedule of using my home indoor rowing machine and rowing with my team on the Cuyahoga River when it was outdoor rowing season at least 3 times a week. I gradually regained strength and speed. I would log my meters and my times in an online Concept 2 rowing logbook that is used worldwide. The indoor rowing machine that I have is a Concept 2. It's made in Vermont. So I gradually got back to where I could regain my strength and speed enough to participate in nationals regatta in Grand Rapids, Michigan in the summer of 2019. And I was so lucky to be in a strong boat. We got a silver medal. So the support and encouragement that I got entirely along the way that year from my teammates and coach was incredible. That's another goal, is get yourself a community of supporters. And for me, in the rowing, the community is very supportive, and we're supportive even to this day. And I'll get to that in a minute. So my healthcare team, meanwhile, was really pleased with my progress, and they said, keep doing what you're doing. And 2 doctors even wanted to know about rowing and wanted to learn. Then came the 2020 pandemic. Boathouse closed, and we had to use strict health and safety guidelines when it was reopened. And the new rule was you were only allowed to roll in a single, which I did not know how to do. So it would have been easy to give up and say, I can't do it. But an opportunity arose where you could get lessons on how to row in a single boat. So I jumped on that. And then after a few weeks of learning how to row a single, I was back in a boat again and able to see my friends who also did the same adaptation. And I want to tell you what it's like rowing on the Cuyahoga River. There's beautiful bridges that are lit up. And when the sunset comes, it's glorious over the lake, over the western view of the lake. And there's wild birds. I mean, birds that are real, the wildlife, it's mostly the birds. I'm a bird nerd. So I get to see cranes, the long-necked cranes and red-winged blackbirds. And while I'm rowing, it's so zen, it's so peaceful. Besides being fast on the water, which was one of my goals, I wanted to get faster. I wanted to have good technique and I wanted to enjoy it. So it was hitting on all those cylinders. So then I also, we learned that diet, exercise, sleep, and social connection are like the keys to cancer recovery and to boost your immune system. So I knew that, and I was working on all 4 of these at the same time. And I became a vegan a year ago so that I could help my kidneys recover better, because the nephrologist told me that he really did think that that would be best for my kidneys. And I also watched a movie, I don't know if any of you've watched Forks Over Knives, which talks about how vegan diet helps strengthen the athletic power. It really does make you faster and stronger, even though it's counterintuitive, because people think, well, you're just eating vegetables and vegetable products and plant products, but it is amazing what it did for me. It made me much stronger. So, and I said I was going to give it a year, and I'm gone beyond a year now as a vegan. So at any rate, the last point I want to say is that I finished this pandemic winter weather has made it boring and difficult to do my home indoor rowing machine. It's lonely. So, and I have a self-imposed quarantine to avoid being exposed to COVID, given my age and the cancer history. So luckily, in November, I discovered an online group based out of the UK that does Zoom erg sessions. So now I'm with another community and rowing like 3 times a week indoors while we can't go on because of the winter weather, our season is closed. But I'm keeping up, and I'm going for my goals, which are my new goals is an erg workout 3 to 4 times a week till we can resume outdoors. And with any luck, my long-term goal will be achieved to stay sane, to be cancer-free, and to row in the head of the Charles once again. That's my story. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a beautiful story, Eileen, and it's very inspiring. And Eileen talked about how terrible the cancer was, but we visited her several times in Cleveland, and the idea that she could row again was like, okay, dream on, but you're never going to hope you could walk again or live again. And so for what she's achieved, it's been just extraordinary. And I think it's been key to your recovery, the vegan diet, the rowing. So when Britany talks about the why, ultimately the why for Eileen was to stay alive. And I think for many of us, that's key, to live and live well and live longer. So Eileen, thank you very much for that. And thank you, Britany and Steve, for your tips. This is going to be on video. It's an incredible talk today. And I will have a Zoom video out on Monday that I'll include in Dr. Rob that I send out. So if you don't get that, please let me know. But these are incredible stories. And now we're going to take about 10 minutes and let you tell your stories to one another and talk about your goals and maybe set a goal. So Emily, can you take us into, these are going to be random small groups. And I think we've got about 10 minutes. So take it to 9:30 and then we're going to have 15-minute wrap up. So Emily, can you take us away and we'll see where we show up, okay?
So Erica, how do we join your group, your Zoom group, and what's the schedule for it? You're muted.
I started talking. I was like, wait, I'm muted. It's the third Thursday of every month. So I'm going to put the link in the chat here. It's on Eventbrite to register and everything. But yeah, third Thursday of every month. And I've been able to at least keep up with that date.
Yeah. I'm familiar with Novi. They used to be one of our municipal clients when I was still working.
I love it here.
Okay, I'm going to call on some people to share what's going on in the groups. I'm going to start with Rick Reed, who had a really good idea that we should all be aware of. Rick, go ahead.
Well, and I'm sure most of the people that have talked about, their athletic tracking and how they're tracked. I've been using Fitbits and, one of these Apple Watch 5s. I'm sure most people would raise their hand and say, yes, they do. But from a daily and weekly perspective, I mean, you don't have to write it down. You can set your move goal, your exercise goal, and, get that feedback, and it'll nudge you and tell you, hey, you didn't hit your numbers today. So it's the most simple way. It's a great investment. It absolutely motivates me. It actually alerted me to having a cardiac condition, if you can believe that the more advanced versions of these things will do. And as a result, I went in and got myself checked out, and I had atrial fibrillation. So you don't know what you're dealing with, and sometimes these things can self-diagnose your problem. I had an inherent sensor or something wrong, but sure enough, I went in and I did, and I've had 3 procedures and got it corrected. But I was at risk for potentially a stroke or worse if I had left that undiagnosed or untreated. So side benefits of these things.
Please raise your hand if you'd like to report out on what tips that came from your group. Does anybody want to talk about their group, or should I just call on people at random here? Raise your hand if you'd like to report out. I'm looking here. I don't see any hands up. Okay, Kit, go ahead.
One of the last things.
Did you just introduce yourself to the group?
Oh, okay. My screen name says Kristen, but I go by Kit Wanty Lambert, and the executive vice president at O&W, which is, like Rob mentioned, a beer distributor in Southeast Michigan. So we cover 7 counties with all kinds of beverages. Actually, we have a new one called BioSteel, which is a great replenisher. It's kind of a sports drink. So that's kind of nice to hear about fitness goals. We launched this new product that we're carrying. But one thing I wanted to share from our breakout group was sometimes we struggle with identifying the metrics to hold ourselves accountable. And when it came to fitness, it was nice to hear that fun can be a metric. So if you're having fun, it makes you feel good, you enjoy what you're doing, that can be a metric in itself. And that I'm a big believer in that. You want to have fun in what you do. So that was nice to hear.
Okay, great. And I think, who else would like to report out from their groups, or if you have questions for the speakers, this is also a good time to do it. I'm trying to look
Rob,
at
this is Jan Mcdermott.
Hi, Jan.
And just as an introduction, I'm the owner and innkeeper at Davies House Inn. We found quite a bit of synergy in our group. We had Eileen, of course, the rower, and then we also had a paddler who does dragon boats, which was fascinating. But both of them on the water, and I think we convinced Orlando to actually get out on the water too, in all of that. But Kristen in philanthropy, and I do quite a bit of work with the Athena Foundation. It's just really interesting when we do these small breakout groups, even though the topic may be one thing, how we find commonality among the people who are put together randomly in these groups. So thanks very much for that.
I want to call on Erica. Erica is a trainer. You want to mention a little bit about what you do, Erica? She's still out there? We may have lost Erica. Okay. Anybody else raise your hand about things that came up? Yeah, go
Erica's
ahead.
there. She's might
Erica, are you there?
not be listening, but I can see her.
Maybe we'll come back to her. If somebody could her.
In the square
If
one on
you're
mine.
sitting next to Erica, give her an elbow there. Michelle, go ahead.
Hey Rob, I'm Michelle Machili. I do pre-college advising for students, college application coaching. So our group, we all said that we like to try to get outside. Some of our schedules are rough, and that we tried to give each other permission to go ahead and hire a coach, especially the last few months of this pandemic before the vaccines completely rolled out. And Ken's suggested the app called Noom, and I suggested the app called Lose It, which is more of a calorie tracking app. But like Britany was saying, outsource your thinking. And Ken's lost like 30 pounds and I've lost 5 pounds. So really important to be able to have a way to track those sorts of things. And most of us just wanted to get outside more. And the border to border trail, Ken talked about that quite a lot, so that's very exciting.
There is, for those in Ann Arbor, County Farm has trails that are shoveled and cleared every day. So there's pathways there if you have trouble with the ice, and we all have to be careful with that. We don't want the broken wrist. I've got Jason on the line here, wants to speak. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if anyone could share any recommendations about keeping things new and fresh. I think I find that I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over, and that gets a bit boring, and then I lose motivation to keep with my goals. So yeah, anything to keep things new and exciting would be great.
Britany, you want to comment on that?
Yes, I find the same thing sometimes for the wraparound activities outside of my training program. And I happen to really like the app Asana, and I use that. It's got a lot of different options on there, and the annual fee to tap into some of those workouts is, relatively low. So I think maybe $70 or something. So it's, yeah, and then it works for a year, and it has a daily sort of plan for you, and you can click on lots of different things. So.
We were talking about anybody else. I don't want to take these, but here's one thing. We're almost at time, and I'm happy to go over. Keep going till 10. But I wanted to have everybody take a minute right now and write down on the chat what you're taking away or what you're committing to. Best is to say, what is your goal now based on what you've heard? It may be the goal might be to get a Fitbit, or to try to compete with. I don't think too many people are going to say my goal is to outdo Britany in the half Ironman, but maybe you can create an Iron Woman. So anyway, would you all just take a minute and put in the chat what you're committing to, and what you've learned from this? I've seen a couple people on there shared that another person, her husband, Brad, found out atrial fibrillation and got treatment for that through the Fitbit. So I think I'm going to go, that's going to be my goal, is to go buy one of those Apple Watches. We'll take a minute, write that down, and then we'll come back, and those that want to continue with questions or comments, we could go till 10.
Rob?
Yeah.
Can I share something that Steve and I were lucky enough to learn from Larry Eiler? He's the master of acronyms. And actually, maybe it's better coming from Larry. Larry, can you say what SPEM is? Because that's the thing I'm taking away.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. I use acronyms so I can remember things that I'm speaking about without using a lot of notes and that type of thing. And the acronym of SPEM means spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And when I remember those, I think about, what am I going to do for myself today, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally? And then at night, I think about them, And this is not an exercise of sitting and thinking for a half an hour and dreaming. It's just a way that I can remember quickly that I have to do those things. I have another acronym called AWAR, and this is for alcohol, writing, anxiety, and relationships. And I have another one called MIND, and that's for meditation and some other things. But using an acronym to remember things, I started to do it a few years ago in a minor way, but in the last year, when I'm doing more speaking about aging and things like that, I have to remember things I want to remember things and look at people when I can, because I read more by looking at their faces and feeding back to what I see. And when they have questions, that's very hard to do with Zoom, although it's even, I'm turning into ways to beat that by having close-ups and things like that and paying attention to a group, because I learn more when I listen than I do when I talk. So
Okay.
that's just the way
Thank you, Larry. And Larry, also, I'm trying to figure out who's the oldest on this group. Larry, how old are you now? You're getting up there, and you're older than me, I know.
I don't talk about age.
But Larry went through a
It
major.
starts with an 8.
Pardon?
It starts with an 8.
8, okay. And Larry went through a major transformation in his 70s that changed his life. And so we'll have you tell your story at some other point, Larry, maybe next time. We're gonna. I think everybody's had a chance to record. Thank you for all those comments. Are there questions or other comments? We're going to stay on another 15 minutes or so. Well, another 10 minutes. We've got to wrap up at 5 minutes too. Anybody else want to share what they do? Haley, you're quite an athlete. What is your routine?
So I told my group, my big thing is accountability to other people. So I'm actually about to hop off in about 5 minutes and go swim with someone. If someone wasn't waiting for me, I would absolutely skip swimming this morning. So it's just knowing that someone, or like Britt does with her coach, I need to have someone that I know if I don't show up, I will get a really hard time. So that's really kind of my routine and my way of doing it.
And Dave, you had some ideas. You mentioned another activity which we haven't talked about very much. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, I'm a bike rider, and some of the suggestions I had are to focus on the things that you can do. And this is oriented more towards people who are seniors rather than worrying about what you can't do. And also responding a little bit to Jason's question about how to make things more interesting. For some activities, and I'm a bike rider, for some activities, just doing it in a different location creates more interest. When I want to do something different, put my bike in the back of my car and go to some area I'm not familiar with that I may know it has bike trails, and take a ride there. Same thing with jogging and running. You can go to a new location and enjoy what you're seeing at the same time as you're engaging in your activity. So those are a couple suggestions I have.
One suggestion I have here is that we should bring this group, just the people that are in it, back together in maybe a month or so, and share what you've been able to follow through with, what you took away, or what your routine is. I know there's a lot of very active people. Tom Walsh, I know you're active. What are you up? What's your routine? I hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, all right. Now I'm unmuted. As I was telling Geraldine during our other chat, one of the things that my wife, was a much more programmed person than I am on fitness things. She does triathlons and things, but she's had knee issues, and she's used COVID for the winter, the winter of COVID, to have both of her knee replacements done 6 weeks apart. So I've been sort of the caregiver here for a while, but she had them done in October and December, and she's pretty mobile now. And you know, there are days where there's stiffness and soreness. But she's doing great. And now with hopefully vaccines soon, we don't have ours yet, but and better weather, we both need to sort of really kickstart our training again, especially, you know, she'll do it just because she's good at it. And as I was telling Geraldine, for my career, which I retired 5 years ago now and have been doing some freelance work since, but when I was working, every day was a 10 or 12 hour work day. And I was pretty much a solo exerciser, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then the rest of the day would get away from me. So I got to find something, and you know, I can share it with my wife now that she's back at it. But it's really been great to hear that everybody, the emphasis on community here.
One other thing about community, I think, is that I think we should all think we're older. Some people are older. There's some young people out here, but reaching out to kids. I mean, there's a lot of problems with kids being inactive, tied to their rooms, tied to their computers or now cell phones. Michelle is a coach for cross country, right, Michelle? And she works with tons of kids every year, and it keeps her fit, I think, right, Michelle?
Wow, it's so nice. Actually, I am such a social exerciser, so it's really nice for me to have the students and my co-coach Karen Yamada as my team. It's very motivating, actually, to see how active they are and how much they contribute, and it keeps me going too. We do have, it's cross country and track for middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We usually have about 140 runners. Wow. I think part of that, Steve knows, you know, it's just a big Ann Arbor running community. But we do have Zoom workouts twice a week. If anybody wants their middle schooler to join in, they certainly can join in. We have about 15 or so kids that work out with us twice a week over Zoom. And very funny. I posted my email that if people want to connect with me. It's Zoom workouts Monday and Thursday. I could put information on there too.
So we're going to wrap up, and we'll give our speakers the last word. Steve, Britany, Eileen, if you all want to just talk about your experience and what your takeaways are from today, any last pieces of advice. I will go backwards this time. So Eileen, you want to, you have anything that you want to share, takeaways, encouragement? We got to hear you. Mike.
Got it.
Yeah, okay.
Just whatever your goals are, don't give up. If you miss something, just let it go, keep going. And you know, we got to keep moving. And if you can make a goal that's achievable and you miss an opportunity, just don't give up. Keep going. Believe in yourself.
Eileen, I'm going to make you my my accountability buddy.
Oh, Rob.
I might have to get a erg or whatever. I don't know. Anybody else? Britt?
Yeah, well, one huge takeaway is I realize I get so passionate about all this, and everybody's stories, it like fills me with such a big warm bubble, right? I'm clearly motivated when I can hear what other people are achieving and accomplishing. So thank you for sharing that today. And then I think the one thing I didn't touch on, and I think is really important, and maybe more for the women too, we wear a lot of hats, right? One of the things I didn't say that I struggled with over the years was putting my workout as an appointment and keeping it, because I didn't often prioritize myself. There always seemed to be someone else, or some kid needed something, or a coworker, or whatever. And so, you know, I get a little more gray and a little more experienced. I gave myself permission to put myself forward first for some things. And what I found, ironically, is it makes me much more able to deliver on the things I want to deliver for my family and friends and colleagues. So that's another thing. I wanted to give everyone permission to put themselves first for this kind of thing. So.
Great.
We'll go back to being in the retail business, and Nike being one of our big vendors. I'm going to go back in time a little bit to one of their ad campaigns and close with "Just Do It."
And Steve, I want to close with, I'm sorry about the Tom Brady, because I think Kansas City actually has 5 Michigan players on it, including Chad Haney. So
Correct, they do.
Yeah.
They have more Michigan players on the Chiefs than any other NFL team. So
all right, I'm going for the Chiefs now. I've changed my bet.
hey,
Actually, I bet on that. What's that PlayStation thing that everybody's making money on? The trading thing.
GameStop.
GameStop. Yeah, that's what I'm betting on them for the Super Bowl. So, all right. So thank you all. How many? Raise your hand if you'd like to come back in about a month and share what you've been doing. Almost everybody. All right. Excellent. Thank you all for participating. If you know people that might want to participate in the mental health part of this in a couple of weeks, let me know. Thank you all for coming. Very inspiring. I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock and hit the bike right now. So starting tomorrow. Thank you.
thanks everybody.
Thanks.